Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about the Tripowin Hawaii Bad Boy collaboration known as Olina SE. So SE is the special edition, sort of a slight retuning of the original Olina, and the shell is, I think, basically the same, if not exactly the same. The only difference is really the turtle with the flower pattern on the back, but the rest of it should, essentially from the exterior, should be exactly the same as the original Olina OG. This is the cable that I think that actually is the same exact cable that came with the Olina. I'm sure the tips are the same. This carry case, which is actually quite nice, is also the same. And there's a pack of tips and filters as well. So lots and lots of the physical things are the same. The packaging is basically the same with new graphics, but the bulk of the change is going to be right here, right in the graph and in the tuning. So you can think of all this as probably just measurement difference, measurement error. So through the bass into the mids, pretty much exactly going to be the same. The big difference is going to be right here, where Olina OG, the original Olina in blue, had these two peaks right there, and that was sort of a little bright for people. It was a little off target on maybe where it was supposed to be. It just, I think it just bothered some people, bothered me enough that we really started working on the mods, and the mods tended to bring it right down exactly where you see Olina SE at. So bring these two basically down, and this actually shifts over the Pinagain peak a little bit, which is an even better suggestion because that becomes a little more forgiving, a little more easygoing. I'm just sliding that in a little bit, and the level, of course, makes it most of the difference. But that is the gist of the change in tuning from Olina stock to Olina SE. Many of you who may have modded your Olina will actually recognize the same signature. It's Olina SE is super, super close to those who may have modded the original. So I will say, we'll kind of jump into it and say, is it still the queen of the dynamic driver? I have to say it still is. It's still my favorite driver in the sub $100 area as far as dynamic drivers. There's a couple other sets that maybe are more specialized, but as far as the set that appeals to me the most, it's still Olina. I haven't changed. This is just a ready-made, pre-built, finished version of the OG Olina mod that we worked on with the original Olina. So the mods were really there to clean up the Pinagain area, like I just mentioned. Now that's all done for you, plus the foam. And I have to admit that the foam, those of you who may have followed Michael Bruce's Unknown Soldier mod for it, use foam as well. I think it's a great addition to it. I wish I had thought about it all the way back then, but Michael did. So fortunately, some of you may have actually taken advantage of foam on the original Olina as well, and this one also, as Hawaii Bad Boy pointed out in his video, to adjust the driver angle. And I'm not exactly sure what that changed on the signature, but he said that was a change that they did, so I will mention it. So why is Olina special? And there's lots of reasons why it's special, but we'll just cover two here. So many sets have tried to reproduce the same bass, mid, treble levels. You'll recognize that signature as very, very familiar. Lots and lots of sets have actually tried to reproduce it. And it typically ends up being a very likable set, but the driver tends to fail to deliver on the tuning, and flaws end up popping up. Either other companies have gotten the balance slightly off and you get a little too much bass or not enough treble. There's just an imbalance there, or the driver just can't deliver the detail that Olina can. And so lots and lots of sets have tried, but you always have to remember that this tuning was really developed for this driver. There's a real synergy between that tuning and this specific driver. So when other companies have tried to implement it, it kind of feels okay. It ends up being quite likable, but never really the same. So second, mid-centric sets are just hard to do. It's very hard when you're not hiding the mid section behind a big bass, behind lots of treble, lots of ways to hide driver imperfections and flaws and just lack of performance behind a big V-shaped set. But mid-centric sets, when you really open that up and present it in a way that's right there in your face to see everything, very, very hard to do. So this one, like 7 dB bass shelf that has both sub and mid bass. Lots of sets do sub bass. They'll push out the sub bass because the mid bass isn't necessarily tight enough to have a nice level where it really supports the mid. So you drop the mid bass down, push everything out to the sub. That's another way to hide things. Not done on Olina, not done on this tuning. Got that. So 9 dB of pin gain. Again, that's a number. It's a great number. 9 dB is a super number. 10 dB. Those two numbers work very, very well on lots of sets. You end up with very revealing, separated mids, just enough quality, very controlled bass for great playback without affecting the mids. The whole bass section is set up to provide just enough bass so everything sounds great in playback and you're not missing anything and it's not affecting your mids. And then the pin gain is the same thing, that 9 dB, kind of right at the edge of pin gain where you might get fatigued after a long session. With the foam, there's sort of less of a chance of that, but it's really the right amount of energy and detail and dynamic driver timbre to sound amazing. It's all about balance, and this driver, this tuning is all about perfect balance. And when you hear it all work together, you hear it on Olina, it's kind of magical. Magical is kind of a bad word for it, but lots and lots of synergy between the tuning and the specific driver. So what does it sound like? The rest of this we sort of went through on the OG, but we'll kind of go through it again. So natural, I think, is the characteristics. Dynamic drivers are more or sort of easier at doing very natural presentations. I would still call it mid-centric, but it really handles many genres with ease, not just my acoustic cover playlist. And I think that was going back to the history of this driver and that tuning. I think there was this thought that it sounds really, really good on acoustic stuff, and as you get into heavier bass genres, I think it gets a little weaker. And I think Olina sort of transitioned and evolved into, I think, more of a bassy presentation. I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just my brain burning into the bass level that it provides, but I do think with tips, and if you want to cover the vent with some micropore tape, I think you do get a little more bass out of it if that's your thing. But I do think it sort of goes beyond that acoustic classic definition of this tuning and that driver. I think it does lots of genres very, very well. So the bass, not bass head levels. Don't expect anything out of place on this set. It's not bass head. It's not treble head. Kind of neutral level. It's sort of very neutral and natural, I guess is how I would describe it. And it's really there just to support the mids. That's exactly what its job is. That's exactly what it does. Like I said, taping it will go deeper if you need it, but the bass is tight, fast, defined, controlled. There's nothing extra to detract from the mids. Everything is about the mids on this set. And I wouldn't even say they maximize the quantity and quality. Lots of sets do that quite well. I think this one, they pushed it right to the limit until it would affect the clarity of the mids. That's sort of what it sounds like. I'm sure the driver is fully capable of doing lots and lots more bass, but they didn't push it because it would affect the mids. So same on the Slam. The drums are impactful, but don't overstep, don't become distracting. There's very intention to the levels on the bass and the providing both sub bass and mid bass that covers lots of genres that some specialized sets will have a little harder time dealing with. So the mids, the big open transparent mids, dynamic driver, natural timbre, details, definition, articulation, clarity, separation, all the good things are there. All those things that you look for in dynamic drivers that many sets fail to deliver, they're all found on Olina. That's why it's the queen dynamic driver. Almost no dynamic drivers do those things as well at this price as Olina can, and this driver can, and this tuning can. So again, it's that synergy of tuning and a driver that can deliver both of those things at the same time. Doesn't need a balanced armature for separation. The mids are very separated. It's kind of shocking when you listen to it. You sort of jump from Olina level dynamic driver kind of to planar. There's not a whole lot in between. It's really that good. So the upper mids are a bit more forgiving now. Like I said, I think just a little bit less biting with the foam, maybe with the foam, and with really no masking from the bass or treble. Easy to hear detail and texture on this set. It's really designed to do that really mid-centric presentation, to hear those things right in the mids. And definitely one advantage of this tuning is equal handling of male and females. That weight and density that you need for male vocals is right there, especially in that mid-bass area. Great level for it. Female vocals have that energy and dynamic range, and also not compressed to sibilance. as higher pin gain sets tend to do. And again, it's that balance. Pin gain at 9 dB, when you go into 10, 11, 12, and you start to hear those female vocals tend to compress quite a bit to get really thin, and that leads you right into sibilance area. Not going to happen on Olina. So another track that's not even a female vocal, but Overcome by Live. Try that on your thin planar. I don't know why that track tends to bother me more than other tracks, but I've tried it on a few planars. I don't think I like it on any of them, but listen to it in your car to get an idea of what it really sounds like. Listen to it on a dynamic driver, and you'll sort of get a feel for what dynamic drivers are really good at versus what planars are really good at. So the treble. Like the bass, not a treble headset either. Not a bass headset, not a treble headset. Mid-centric set, keep that in mind. It's really there to support the mids and offer natural playback levels, and that's exactly what it does. Very natural playback, very natural level. Nothing pushed, nothing boosted. Just one of the areas that many sets have failed to reproduce, and they kind of fall short on performance and unbalanced. It's really easy to add just a little more bass because it's fun. A little more bass is fun. Tends to mask the upper treble, and you sort of lose air. And there's not a lot of air in the signature, but when you mask it with anything, it tends to drop away, or you boost the lower mids a little bit too much, and the vocals become a little unnatural and thin. It's really easy to deviate just a little bit from this tuning, and the driver doesn't handle it all that well. So again, this driver and tuning, all about the balance of those two. So without too much bass, the masking treble, lots of smooth, detailed, dynamic driver timbre, treble without the need to overboost any area, like I said. No BA, thin graininess in the treble, proper extension, and the level adds to the big stage. Just enough air, not super high, treble, airy, big peak out there. That's not what this set's about. It's a very natural presentation. Stage, more of a box around your head. It's sort of this 3D immersive style. Lots of things happen behind your head, especially. Lots of imaging above and even behind. Most of the left-right instruments will be beyond your ears. That was sort of a trademark of this driver. This tuning did those things quite well. Not too many other dynamic drivers pull that one off at all, period. They usually botch the stage. So again, it's one of those things that made Olina quite special. And it's also that last 5% that really makes Olina SE nearly untouchable in the sub 100 category. It's that final bit that almost no other sets at the price dynamic driver have been able to touch stage as well as Olina does. So that's what I got on Olina. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.